As a young automotive enthusiast growing up in the 1990s, yes, I am that old, I remember that the Honda Prelude was one of the first vehicles that I could get really excited about. And now after a 20-year break, the Honda Prelude is finally back with this all-new 6th generation model. And while this one is a very different vehicle than the one I admired as a kid, it's still supposed to embody the same elements that made that one such a hit. A sporty coupe style, fun driving dynamics that are also still comfortable, and Honda's hard-earned reputation for reliability. And this one is excellent, except there's one big red flag.
For more expert car reviews, don't forget to share our channel and subscribe so you can catch some of this and maybe even a little of that.
I think Honda did a great job with this coupe design. First of all, I'm happy that it's a coupe period and that it's not some kind of SUV or something. So you all should be very happy about that too. But you really can't go wrong with this classic sporty teardrop shape. And I think Honda was really smart with the clean lines and the unfussy elements. I think it is a design that will age very gracefully. And I think it projects the car's intentions very well, which is to be sporty but nothing too hardcore. I love their proportions, the stance is very sporty. I also really like the little blue elements. There's a little blue element on the nose, you got the blue Brembo brakes and one on the tail. And in Honda world, that signifies that this is a hybrid. I also really love the fact that there are functional vents. It is a big pet peeve of mine when sporty cars have fake vents. And then finally, I really love this double bubble roof. It's a very classic sporty design cue. And in general, I really like what I see here. Just to get this out of the way right off the bat, the original Honda Prelude was not a sports car, so to judge this new one as a sports car would just be unfair. And Honda was really trying to manage expectations right from the get-go. They said flat out, this is not a sports car, this is meant to be more of a grand touring car. And GT cars are really meant to balance kind of sporty driving with long distance driving comfort. And if that was the mandate, I actually think Honda nailed it with this. So first of all, they take the powertrain from the Honda Civic Hybrid and combine it with some of the performance hardware from the Civic Type R. And this powertrain starts with a 2-liter 4-cylinder engine and 2 electric motors for a total system output of 200 horsepower and 232 pound-feet of torque. And then from the Type R, it takes the front suspension, the adaptive dampers, and the Brembo brakes. So this is a front-wheel drive, kind of sport compact car. And when you combine those two elements together, I think Honda actually nailed it with the driving dynamics. So the suspension is set up to be a little bit more forgiving than what you have in the Type R. And that's really to make sure that drivers have that daily drivable comfort. So it's not too harsh and not too punishing, which is good news. The other important thing to note is the transmission. Technically, it's a CVT, but don't let that turn you off too quickly because it actually operates in a way that is very different from a traditional CVT. So the one in this Prelude works together with the gas engine and the electric motors to send power to the front wheels in a more direct way than a traditional CVT. And what that means is that it can use both or either power sources to get power to the front wheels almost instantaneously. So really, it works more like what you would experience in an electric vehicle. So you get that hit of instant torque right when you need it. What that translates into is to really strong launches. And it suffers a little bit in the mid-range. Like when you're passing someone on the highway, it's not as responsive or immediate as I would like it to be. But in general, this thing handles so well. For a front-wheel drive car to handle as well as this one does, like we're just gonna be hustling through some corners here, and there was barely any understeer. And Honda is already so good at that. And I'm really happy that those kinds of driving dynamics are in this Prelude. It tackles a corner so confidently and so cleanly. This is really like a point and shoot type of vehicle. It is very easy to drive. It is rewarding to drive. And just going back to that transmission for just a little bit, in comfort mode, you can use these paddle shifters to kind of control the regenerative braking, which helps recharge the battery. But when you put it into what Honda calls S plus shift, it kind of mimics how a more traditional transmission would operate. So you can use them to simulate gear shifts. It also does this interesting thing where it will simulate like rev matching and downshifting, and it'll blip the throttle when you do a downshift. And all of that is really to give the driver a heightened sense of like engagement. And I think it helps, you know, it's subtle enough that it's not annoying, but in the back of my mind, I'm always going to be thinking that it's simulated. It's not authentic. But I guess at this stage, I'll take what I can get. I do wish the steering was a little bit more lively and gave me a little bit more feedback and resistance. You know, even in sport mode, I find it to be a little bit numb. But in general, I think Honda nailed it with the driving dynamics of this thing. I really enjoy it. So it's really nice to see electrification used to enhance performance and not just fuel economy, because that's been a really big thing in the luxury space. So it's really nice to see it kind of trickle down to more mainstream vehicles like this. And even with that focus on performance, you know, the Prelude's fuel economy is actually pretty good. So officially, it's rated to get 5.4 liters per 100 kilometers combined. I've been getting about 6.4, and honestly, I'm not surprised because A, we're in the middle of winter, I'm on winter tires, and I also have not been driving this thing gently at all. I've been really putting this Prelude through its paces, and so I'm pretty confident that with a lighter foot and some better conditions outside, you can hit that advertised fuel economy no problem. But in general, the highlight for me is how brilliantly this Prelude handles. The inside of the Prelude will look really familiar if you've ever been in a Civic or another type of Honda. There's not too many surprises in here. I do really like that Honda put in a lot of those blue elements, you know, the contrast stitching, the Prelude name on the dashboard looks really good. I kind of wish that they made this 12 o'clock marker blue as well. And in general, I want to see more color in this cabin. If they just put that blue everywhere, I'd honestly be so happy. But I really like what's going on in here. It's built really well. I think the controls are very user-friendly. There's a lot of physical knobs and buttons, which is great. You know, this push-button gear selector isn't one of my favorites, but you'll get used to it quickly enough. I also really like the seats here. I think they're very comfortable for long distance driving. There's a lot of bolstering on the driver's seat, and there's actually more bolstering here than there is in the passenger seat. The problem is the rear seat though. Like this is a 2+2, but those rear seats are pretty much useless. Like if you're my height and I'm like 5'6" or whatever, I can't even fit back there because there is no headroom, barely any leg room. And then when I was getting out, my butt got stuck. I don't even have a big butt and I got stuck. So it's really kind of useless back there. The cargo space is not bad. There's about like 400 and something liters back there, and you can fold down those seats for even more room. But there's a lot of width in that trunk, but not a lot of height. So it's not as practical as some other vehicles out there. But I think that's okay because it stays true to this car's mission. And there's some good news. So Honda will give you this red color for free. And in fact, if you want the black one or the white one, they're going to charge you something like $400 extra. And I think that's the way it should be because I think that will get more people choosing the fun colors. So thank you, Honda, for that. Now I got to talk about that red flag, and that's the pricing. And Honda Prelude pricing has been pretty controversial because Honda Canada is asking for $50,000 for this. And it only comes in one fully loaded trim. Now that pricing is kind of problematic for me because although it's really well stocked with features, you know, there's great stuff like wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, all the safety features, a wireless charger, all that kind of stuff. There's no heated steering wheel. I mean, like we live in Canada, it is a huge red flag not to have a heated steering wheel. And the other problem with that pricing is that you can get vehicles that are more fun and more practical for a lot less money. And some of that competition comes from within Honda's own lineup. Like the Honda Civic Si, for example, you can have that for about $10,000 less than this. And it's not as powerful, but it is way more practical and it is way more fun. For about $10,000 less, you can also get a Volkswagen Golf GTI, which is more powerful, more practical, and I would argue more fun as well. And then if you have a little extra budget to play with, you can spend a couple thousand extra bucks and get a Honda Civic Type R. And so this leaves this Prelude in a little bit of an awkward position price-wise. And that's a kind of a hard pill to swallow, because even though it handles so well, I'm just going through these corners and I love it, but I can't stop thinking about that price tag. To recap, I like the Honda Prelude's brilliant handling, sporty but clean design, and how efficient it is. I'm not a big fan of how expensive it is, especially because it's lacking features, or how the rear seat is so cramped. I can really see the appeal of the Honda Prelude for someone who wants a comfortable daily driver that's also sporty and stylish. I think Honda did a great job with this Prelude, but I really can't get over that $50,000 price tag. And I wish Honda would have pushed it just a little bit further to help it feel more special, to help justify what it's asking for.